Welcome to 30-Minute Reviews. I am Adam. Okay, so back to our regular schedule. This week we have Knives Out, but I'm also going to do a review of Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield that I've been threatening to do for like 2 months now. So why not do it today? Let's first do Knives Out. Because this movie came out not too long ago. November. It just came out on DVD like last week. I actually really like this movie. I like the mystery genre, especially when you can do a mystery that doesn't devolve into action. And what I mean by that is, if you look at like Murder on the Orient Express, not necessarily that movie, I didn't really like that movie too much, but if you look at other movies in this vein, if we look at Agatha Christie and how she does it, if we look at Murder, She Wrote, if we look at all these kind of things, it's not action so much driving the story, it's the mystery, and them trying to figure out the mystery and them interviewing people. Even if you look at like serials from the 50s, like Perry Mason's one that's big like this, where it's like you look at you see how he operates. He's not going in guns blazing like say a Maddox or a or a Kojak or Rockford or anything like that. He's trying to solve the case, and he's gathering the information, and then he's going to look at all the information and put it together. And when you do something like this, you need to have a good inspector character in the lead, and Daniel Craig does a great job in the role. The entire cast does good playing off of each other. It's a very topical film where the politics of real life kind of bleed in, and you can feel like this is what family gatherings feel like in some parts of the world today. So the movie works very well in that regard. And the mystery, the important part about the mystery is that when you're going to harp on a mystery like this, it needs to be something that you can trace through the movie. You have to be able to, you have to be able to go through, and everything that happens needs to not be revealed in the end, and it can't be things that happened off screen. So, like, when I talk about, like, when they go through the big reveal at the end, when Daniel Craig and the inspector and everyone are all there, and they're walking through how they know, spoiler, that it was Ransom who murdered the father. When they get to that point, it's revealed by everything that you see up until that point is led into that point in the movie. And like it was something that when I watched in theaters the first time, it's one of those things that because this is the kind of movie you're watching, you're looking for clues as you're going. So like when they reveal that someone had to have pulled the antidote or the thing that's going to save his life from a morphine overdose, when that wasn't in her bag, it's like, well, why wasn't it in her bag? Someone had to pull it out of her bag. So that's the it's things like that that kind of clue you in as you're going, and then when they reveal it, it makes you feel better as a viewer because you're like, oh, I caught that. That's cool. And then it's like everything has to pay off in some way. You can't leave any strings hanging. Everything needs to have some kind of payoff. So what else was there with this? It's very well shot, very well directed, and everything, and all the entire cast works well with each other. There's a lot of really funny moments with the cast. Michael Shannon's very good. I like Chris Evans is very funny, in his limited role. He can play Menace very well too. So what else is that I want to talk? I don't do anything else to talk about. If you haven't seen this movie yet, definitely go see it. I keep saying that because I'm recording this like I would usually record it. Beware of spoilers. I'm doing this in my car, so got right into that. Also, a lot of times about this movie it would on to beware of spoilers. So you can pick it up on DVD now. Walmart's got it for like $15 on DVD probably. 20 for a Blu-ray. Best Buy's got this really neat steelbook that they were sold out of, and I was really disappointed, so I got it on Blu-ray. It's on 4K. You can get it digital. It's everywhere now. I guess ask don't pirate movies. That's the only thing I ask. So what else is there? Let's talk about Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield, which has been a topic of conversation for a while now. It's something that it's not getting quite what it deserves, I don't think. And I did an article about this. Consumer friendly is Game Freak a consumer friendly company? And I say it's not. And I'm not saying that based on this generation. I'm saying that based on prior generations. This generation, there's only 400 Pokemon in the entire game. It's something like 425 if you include all the... it's probably closer to 450 if you include all the other Pokemon that are there but aren't in the decks. Like the Alola starters, the Alola Legends, Mewtwo, Mew, and all of the Kanto starters are all in the game, but you can't use them. Z-moves are out, Mega Evolutions are out, but it's concise, it's down. Now, here's the thing. There was going to be backlash regardless of them culling the decks. Because there's always going to be stuff that people like that got culled. Because, like, I was disappointed that Metagross wasn't in the game and Dragonite and all the other, things. They're not there. They're kind of staples. Like, I don't think Slugma's in the game, and Slugma's been a staple of when I play since Gen 4, because because Magcargo has Flame Body, and you can use that to hatch your eggs faster. Unfortunately, he's not in the game. So, but here's the thing. There was always going to be concessions, and there's always going to be like, why did that get in, but this one didn't? And some of them made sense, some of them didn't. But what are we going to do? They're adding in DLC to bring in some of the new characters. Now let's talk about Sword and Shield base to begin with. Sword and Shield, it's very pretty. Like, it's not the best Pokemon game we've had graphically. I would maintain that the best Pokemon games that we've had graphically in order are Generation 5 and then Generation 3. Because Generation 3, I think, is going... This isn't the last we're going to talk about Generation 3 in this episode. I'm going to talk about it more in a little bit. But Generation 3, if you play through Ruby and Sapphire, there is one gate in the entire game. You can go through the entire region without going through a gate and having to go through a load screen. Generation 5 is probably the peak of the sprites, and going with the sprite era, the pixel art sprite, design, and it looks very good. I love how that one looks, and it kind of meshes the 3D in very well. That said, Generation 8, as we're in right now, the textures are a little bit weak. I mean, what are you gonna do? But that doesn't make it break a game for me. I'll play, I have no problem playing games with poor graphics. I go back and play old games all the time. I've been playing, I have a N64. I've gone back and I've been playing Rugrats in Paris. It's a pretty fun game. Eventually, I'm going to go back and play Shadows of the Empire, because I just got that. Diddy Kong Racing does not hold up as well as you think it would. But I think that's worth addressing. Is that, for me, graphics don't... It's like, oh, well, look at this game. It's like, yeah, but that's two different studios, and it's like, if you point out Game Freak's a multi-million-dollar studio, it's like, yeah, but they're not making that money from the video games, they're making from the merchandising and all of that. It's like when he'll point out Star Wars is a multi-million-dollar franchise, it's like, yeah, but the movies are a very small part of what brings in money for Lucasfilm. It's a huge machine of a company. And it's the same thing for Game Freak, where it's like merchandising, the anime, the movies, everything comes in and works well on this giant machine. So, really, if they're not investing money in their engine, then that's on them. Eventually it's going to catch up to them, but I don't think this is the point where that hits. Here's the thing, though. So, they are going to add DLC. The first DLC does come out this summer. The second one comes out this fall. They're adding in more Pokemon. There's more Galarian forms. Too many cutscenes. This has been a complaint of mine since Sun and Moon. Too many cutscenes to get through the story. In the older games, I didn't sit here through cutscenes. I can just go through the game and kind of figure it out as I go along. There's too much hand-holding, too many cutscenes. I just don't like the cutscenes. That's my biggest problem with the game. And it was the reason why I almost didn't buy this, too. It's just if it was going to be like Sun and Moon, I never even finished Ultra Sun. But because of how many cutscenes there were, I'm only going to play through the same game again just to get God knows what happens. Like, you get to see Ultimate Necromza, who cares? So, let's... now with the DLC, they're adding in new Galarian forms, which is this new thing they're doing where it's like, it makes sense because it's like divergent evolution in real life, where it's like it grows. If a Pokemon was native to one region and then native to another, it wouldn't look identical, because it would need to adapt in different ways to match what that environment has. So there are changes like that. And that's fine, that's cool. There's new ones coming in the new set. I think Slowpoke's the one that's confirmed, and then like the Reggies, and then and then things like that. But here's the problem with the DLC. I like the DLC idea. Maybe I'm alone in that, okay? Because here's how I look at it. I look at it like this. If I am playing Pokemon, what's it called? If I'm playing Pokemon Sword, let's say for argument's sake I'm playing Pokemon Sword, and then I gotta play, and then they release a third version of the game, I'm paying another $60 to get Ultra Sword, or Mega Sword, or Sword Part 2, or something like that. It's just, Sword, the quote-unquote final mix of Sword, which is all that the third version is. It's like, it's what Kingdom Hearts 2 final mix is to Kingdom Hearts. It's the same thing. Where it's like, we added in some stuff, and you're going to pay full price for the same game. It's like a remaster, but 2 years later. It's kind of a weird concept that we've kind of just become okay with. So, we've now doubled the price, purely on that alone. We've doubled the price, and we're now paying, what's it called? We're paying $120. Now, with the DLC, we're still paying $120. It's still $120. Now, all the Pokemon haven't been put back into the game. That's true. I will concede that. Not all the Pokemon are back into the game. If that's your reason why you don't want to play the games, that is a perfectly valid reason to not want to play the games. I completely understand that. But it's hard to make the argument that paying $60 for what would amount to the same amount of content that you would get from the third version, you're getting double that amount of content, because you're getting a new post-game area and new post-game stuff. Really, that's all that's added in the third version of the game, is new post-game stuff to do, and that's what the DLC is doing, and it's adding in new post-game stuff to do. The difference is, I don't have to play through the same story a second time in 2 years just to get that same stuff. I don't have to sit here and slog through the 8 gyms I already did and do the exact, or the puzzles are slightly modified, so they're slightly different. You maybe change up a gym leader or two, but like, it's functionally the same game. It's the same region, it's the exact same game, it's just you've added in something at the end of it to make it worth me paying another $60. Now, if I don't have to do that and I can just jump into the end thing for the same price, then that's a win on its own. On top of that, the other thing with this is, if you're saying this is the first time that Game Freak has done something that's not quite consumer-friendly, let's look back at Generation 3, and I was going to talk about this again later. Generation 3 is the one Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, and then as well as Fire Red, Leaf Green. Now, at the time, you could not transfer from Generation 2 to Generation 3. There was a hardware limitation that existed between the Game Boy Color and the Game Boy Advance. I don't understand the semantics of how that worked, but it existed according to Game Freak. I trust that really existed. If it didn't, it just makes this a million times worse. But it seems accurate. I've never seen it disputed by anyone. Like, I've never seen any game that was able to do this, but Game Freak just couldn't crack it. Either way, this happens. Okay, so we have this happening. So when Ruby and Sapphire come out in 2003, you cannot access anything you caught prior to Generation 1. Generation 2. Anything you caught prior in Gold, Silver, Crystal, Red, Green, Blue, Yellow, you cannot access. They're all locked behind a wall. Because you can't get to that because it's a technical limitation. So let's go. So here's the thing now. There are only like 200 Pokemon in the dex out of 386. I want to say. I think it's either 150 or 200 available for catch between Ruby and Sapphire. That's assuming you have both. You have a friend who's got Ruby and you have Sapphire, or vice versa. That's an assumption on my part. So assuming that you buy just one game, you're paying for just one game. And let's not take this out of proportion, where it's like, oh, we're gonna argue this about paying $40 or $30 in the past, and now we're paying $60 because it's on a new console. Forget that. We're talking purely whole game price, the price of paying for the whole game. So you do that. Now, here's the problem with that, though. Go online and find a ROM of Ruby or Sapphire. Any ROM of Ruby or Sapphire, unmodified. Or better yet, if you have the game, trade with Fire Red and Leaf Green. trade in one of the Pokemon that was not available for catch in that game. You'll notice there's no patch, there's no change. They're there. Movesets, egg pools, stature distributions, everything for these Pokemon are in the game and set up so you can very easily get them and you can use them. They're completely viable. Nothing you got to do extra. They're in the code. And if you play through the game, you'll see there are areas that you can use, and you can put the You can put your put these in very easily, and you can get them. There was no reason for Fire Red or Leaf Green to exist, and if you say, "Oh, it was because these Pokemon weren't available because of that," you're deluding yourself. You're looking back at a time where you didn't have to pay for the game because, a lot of people who are complaining about this now are not old enough to have paid for these games when they came out. You didn't need to get that to get these Pokemon. If you had a friend, you could have gotten it that way. Or if Game Freak did something consumer-friendly and put these Pokemon in the game somehow, well, not even somehow, because they're there, all you got to do, if you download, I forgot what it's called because I used to use it when I was younger, I was messing around with modifying ROMs. There was a software you can download, I think it was on Poke Community, on the ROM hacking forum. There was a software you could download, you put your ROM into it, and you can modify the encounters. And you can do that. And not only that, but I had an action replay, so I was modifying the encounters anyway. I was able to modify the encounters, so it's like you would walk through Route 101, and you'd encounter Entei or anything you want. All available to be in the game. And it wasn't that there was going to be an issue where they couldn't do it, because it's there. It's all there. They just didn't. And they didn't because they could sell you 3 more games after that. And then on top of it, they also sold you Colosseum and XD because there were certain Pokemon that were locked behind those too. Ho-Oh, Lugia were locked into that. The starters for Johto were locked into that, except for one that you can get in Emerald. So you can play through Emerald, complete the dex 3 times, and then you can get all 3 of the starters, or you can buy Colosseum and get each of them. I don't think we can say this is the least consumer-friendly generation that Game Freak's ever had when that happened. And the fact that people don't look at that more and say this is wrong, I guess it's not enough people had an action replay, or they had an action replay and it never clicked what it meant that you were able to modify the encounters and just bring up any Pokemon you wanted. It wasn't the action replay doing that. It was just changing the first encounter slot for that route and changing it into that Pokemon. That's all it was doing, because the Pokemon, everything about them, catch rates, everything about them was pre-programmed into the game. They're there and they're ready to go. That would be what we would call now disc-locked content. Because it's there on the disc, all they need to do is flip a switch. And that's the difference. That's not going on with this generation. Because as of right now, there are only the Pokemon that aren't in the Galarian decks that are there are Bulbasaur line, Charmander line, Squirtle line, Mewtwo, Mew, the lines for the 3 starters from Alola, Cosmoem, Cosmog, and the legends from what's it called? The legends from that other game, from the Alola games. Those are the only Pokemon that are on the disc and not in the game. And even that, you can bring them over from bank. So, I hate on one hand, yes, you do have a right to want more from your game. You have a right to say, if I'm going to pay $60, this is what I want from it. If I'm not getting what I want from it, I'm not going to pay $60. So $60 is a lot of money. I work, for me, that's 3 hours of work. I got 3 hours of work will get me enough money to, 4 hours with tax. 4 hours of work will get me enough money to buy the new Pokemon game. Is it worth spending that much to get something that I don't necessarily want all of? And it's like, is it really? But I understand that thought process. I completely do. And I'm 100% on board with it. But on the other hand, you can't go expecting them to do more than this, because this is all they've ever done since 2003. In 17 years, they've done nothing but sell you the same game over and over again, and make it seem like you're paying more, the same. Like, think of it like this: Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald. Emerald adds in a cutscene and changes the way that you encounter the legends, and it adds in the Battle Frontier. No reason why any of that shouldn't have been in base Ruby to begin with, Ruby and Sapphire. Any other franchise Think about it, there's no other franchise that functions in this way, where they sell you 2 games and combine them into one, and then expect you to buy the same game at least twice, if not 3 times. No other franchise does that. And we accept it from Pokemon. So if that's the reason why you're upset, then by all means, be upset. But don't act like this is a new thing. This is not a new thing, what they're doing. This has been the way it's worked since the beginning. And that's what we'll wrap up for today. And we'll be back next week with, I don't know. I'll put up a poll on Twitter when I get home, and I'll see what movies I have. We'll put up a poll, and we'll see what we're going to watch next week. But we will be watching a new movie next week, and we'll be talking about, I think Flash Forward finishes next week. We'll talk about Flash Forward as it ends its run from DC Comics, and why I'm disappointed in that as well. And until then, have a great rest of your week.